All right, everyone, I have a treat for you. I have Monica Inkson here, who is a client of mine, a member of the money manifestation movement. And I have been witnessing Monica's growth over the past six-ish months. Maybe has it been a little longer than 6 months?
I feel like six is the right
Yeah,
number.
six-ish. And oh my gosh, it has been so inspiring to witness it and see what she has created. Monica has courageously started a new business not too long ago and is already on her way to seven figures. And it's just a beautiful example of what is possible for women and seeing how you've made a lot of internal shifts that have really allowed you to grow also externally. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the inside job of growth. And I want to dive into maybe some of the mindset things that you have shifted and really just dive into your brain and learn, okay, how can other women become millionaires, right? How can other women grow businesses and really yeah, that's what I want to dive into today. So Monica, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit more of what you do as an entrepreneur, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. I'm Monica. I am a general contractor and I run a professional painting company. We provide lots of different painting services. I didn't imagine I would be a general contractor. And when I started looking at businesses, I looked at all different sorts of things, honestly, from dog care to nursing care for senior adults. But my passion really lies inside of contracting and specifically painting. So I feel very, very lucky that this is absolutely where I've landed. I love being here.
Wow. It's like this golden goddess that's a contractor. You saw Monica, you wouldn't be like, yeah, that's definitely a contractor. I love it so much. So, how did you decide to get into that work, or how did you get into it? Yeah.
So long ago, I worked in a home improvement store and I met a lot of contractors. And the lovely thing about them is they're very happy to share their knowledge base. So I just learned so much about home improvement and remodeling and turning a home into what you really want it to be.
Yeah.
And at some point, I thought, oh, these would be great skills to use. A woman talking to a woman about how to make an improvement in her home. Maybe women would trust me
Yeah.
more than my male counterparts, even though they're perfectly capable and wonderful. But there is just a sense of comfort, I think, when you're working with a woman. At the time, I was raising two daughters by myself, and they were young. And the thought of having an income that wasn't necessarily reliable or being out in the world when I needed to be at home with them, that just really sort of took a toll on me. So I put that idea on hold. And I got into the healthcare IT field. I used to build electronic medical record systems for the hospitals across the state. Um, so totally different field. I made good money. I put my kids through school. It was a great career. My husband and I retired, and things in my world changed dramatically. I found myself suddenly single and not quite able to take care of myself on my own. I needed an income, and I really wanted to be set for my own retirement. And long story short, I vetted a lot of businesses, and when this one came up, I thought, this is where I thought I wanted to go to start with. This is what I wanted to jump into. Here's my opportunity. And I saw it as my opportunity to not only follow something that I loved, but to move my family forward, to to bring us to a new level. And I always had a dream that I could make a bigger impact in my community. And I saw this opportunity to make money as a way to really give back to the community in ways that I've actually always dreamed of.
Wow.
Wow,
That is
that
so
is so
beautiful. I
beautiful.
love
I
that
love
so much.
that.
And when did you start? When did you buy this company or start this career?
About 15 months ago. It hasn't quite
Okay.
been a year and a half. So yes, I am a relatively new business owner.
Okay, so you had mentioned that you have a little bit of a background in coaching too, right? And you bring some of that into your business now, correct?
I do, yeah. So when I learned about the money manifestation movement, I realized that this was really something that was focusing on coaches and coaching, but the principles really spoke to me. So I sort of put the coaching piece and made it my own inside of my business.
Yep.
But I am a certified nutrition coach. I learned nutrition coaching to take care of my parents as they were getting older. And now I find that I really sort of still apply those principles as I'm working with clients to make the
Yeah.
decisions for themselves about what are we going to do with your home or your business. And painters, when I'm trying to make sure that they're doing good work for my clients,
Right.
they come with lots of experience and knowledge. And as the new girl on the block, how do I get you to a place where I know that you know what you're doing, but maybe we could make things a little bit better. So yes, I do use my coaching skills all
Well,
the
yeah, and I love
time.
hearing that too because I think there's so many coaches who got certified and maybe they started their coaching business or dabbled in it and found that maybe it's not totally what they want to do, that they love the coaching skills and love the mindset piece and love all the tools that come along with it, but maybe their expertise is somewhere else. Like you have this extensive background in home design and being able to say, oh, wait, it's not like I have to be a coach because I went and got certified. I can literally bring that work or bring the work of the movement into any business I ever do in order to grow it. And it's like your coaching skills are never lost. Once you're a coach, you're always a coach, right? Once you learn these tools, once you learn how to utilize the power of the brain and manifestation and all of that, it's like it can be applied to absolutely anything. So I love seeing when people, really follow their heart and trust their instinct and their intuition and go after what it is they really want and then be able to bring that to it. I think it's so beyond powerful. So that's actually something I would love to dive in with you because it is, this is amazing. You started this 15 months ago and have
Yes.
grown it to the extent that you have. We're talking it's on its way to seven figures, I want to hear all the things. I want to hear, I think some of the things I'd love to dive into today are, what has helped you do that? What are some of the mindset practices or manifestation pieces or the tools that maybe you've learned in the movement that have a lot, like really helped with that? What's the internal work you've done? And then I also want to talk about, have there been growing pains along with that? That's a quantum leap. That's big growth. So I want to talk about both sides of it because I think it's important to cover both and for people to know that there is always that 50-50 experience. There still is contrast in rapid growth and to talk about some of the work that you do around that growth. So let's first dive into though, like what's some of the internal work that you've done and have you noticed has helped allow for this to grow in the way that it has?
So when I came into the movement, I came in out of a sheer sense of desperation.
Okay.
I was not making the money that I really thought I would or should be making.
Okay.
I knew that when I bought the business, I own a franchise,
Yep.
that it did not have the best reputation. I don't know if maybe you visited my Google site, but there's some really terrible, terrible Google reviews out there about the company before I took it over. So I knew that I had a hard road to follow, and I was okay with that.
Yep.
What I didn't know was that the previous owners were maybe not the most reliable painters, and there would be so much work to fix. And I really spent the better part of the first 6 months in business just trying to fix the messes, perhaps, that they left behind. And all I could see was money being spent, and no money coming in. And that was my whole perception of my first year in business. All I'm doing is spending money and paying royalties to the franchise, and how am I going to keep doing this?
Yeah.
And I was really just feeling desperate. And I remember listening to one of the first online free webinars that I was part of, and somebody said, um, it's an investment and it's a scary investment, but I promise you, if you do it, you'll get that money back.
Yeah.
And I was just so desperate for something to change that I thought, I need to figure out how to make this work. I just need to figure out how to be a part of this. And I would just keep my eye out for another webinar and join it. And at some point, I made the leap. It took a very big leap of faith, and a change. It was the first change maybe toward having better self-worth. When I thought about spending the money, it seemed like a huge sum. Here I had put out all this money, to buy a house. I was single. To buy a business, and to pay a lawyer to be divorced. I was really just watching money. And the expression that I stopped using in the interim is fly out the window. I no longer watch money fly out the window because I had to stop saying that.
Totally.
Yeah, that was my perception, though, that money was just leaving, leaving, leaving. And I stopped one day and gave it some very serious thought. And I thought to myself, I invested a lot of years and love in my marriage
Yep.
and in my children. And I invested a lot of money in my children.
Yeah.
I put them through private school on my own. I put them through college pretty much on my own. And here I was thinking, well, should I spend this money? Well, why shouldn't I? If I was willing to invest in a marriage and in a family and in education, why wasn't I worth making the investment in myself?
Yes.
And that was maybe the first shift toward making some positive changes.
Wow.
And from there, I just started doing the very simple things. I feel like we've talked once before about my first thought about it. I can create money.
Yep.
Well, who'd have thought that?
Who would have thought you could just start thinking that and start finding evidence?
And maybe it was really the evidence that was something, because if I thought about it, I've created a lot of money.
Totally.
When I was in healthcare IT, I brought in millions of dollars for the medical systems across the state.
Yeah.
I could create money. I just
Yep.
spent a lot of years doing it for someone else.
Yeah.
And with that realization, I thought, well, now it's time to do that for me.
Wow.
I've created money for lots of people. Now I can just take a minute and create the money for me. And when I started seeing that evidence,
Yeah.
I started having a different thought about my business. Because my first thoughts were, well, I've got this terrible business reputation that I need to fix. And oh, there's so much work that got done poorly. This business when is it ever going to make money? It might never make money.
Yeah.
But seeing that evidence about my life and the money that I was able to create and really examining that gave me a new perspective that my business could make money. I started just actually believing that my business had the potential to make money. And from there, I don't remember if it was a podcast, a webinar, but there was something about what story are you telling yourself? And I was telling myself that my business was not making money. And one day I sat down and I really examined my financials. And I made a profit in my first year. It wasn't huge.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was expecting. And with that came the story, well, you're not making any money. But there it was in black and white. Yes,
Yep.
I did make money.
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't what I hoped,
Yep.
but I did in fact make money. And when I could see that, and I actually just believed that on the inside, everything changed.
Wow. Amazing. I love this story. And I do think, especially with a program like the money manifestation movement, or, a coaching program where most people come in because they're like, I don't have the best relationship with money. Most people aren't like, I'm bringing in so much overflow. I feel amazing about money. We're usually in a place where it's like, it's like, I need to make a change, but it takes a lot of courage. And usually our mind is like in a different place where it's like, I can't spend any money from this place. But it sounds like, what you stepped into is allowing yourself to really receive, right? Like you said, you were really good at creating money, but for other people. And I think that's very common for women. It's like, oh my gosh, the kids need private school. Let's go. Let's figure this out. I'll do whatever it takes. Or they want to play a sport, or they need something, or they need medical attention, or something with, the partner, right? We're really good at creating money for others, but not as comfortable always at receiving. And I know that's been a huge piece for me. That was a massive bit of work, was around allowing myself to receive as well. And, you allowing yourself to do that. I'm curious also, how did you find the resources whenever you knew it was right, but you're like, you were in that place, not that it was necessarily a fact, but your story was there's just money going out, right? So, as you're thinking there's only money going out, there's only money going out, how did you find the courage to release, an additional, thousands of dollars for coaching?
Again, I had to look at my story.
Yeah.
And I've really been doing a lot of work around this very recently.
Yeah.
Recently, I've come to the realization that there's a difference between not having money
Yeah.
and not having money for something.
Yeah.
Just because it's not in your budget right now
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you don't have money.
Yeah.
There was a point in this journey where you asked us to take a look and think about our resources. We must have some resources.
Yeah.
We're looking at this webinar on a phone or a computer.
Yeah.
We have a resource.
Yeah.
If we're living in a house or an apartment, we're paying to be in that space, or we've paid for it, we must have resources.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter was, I did have money in a bank account, but I was just holding so tightly to it and so afraid of spending it, that in my mind I had no money.
Yeah.
And so that just wasn't a truth. That was just some scarcity happening and fear happening. If I spend my money on this, what if I don't get it back?
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I've spent money on a lot of things that I'll never get back.
Yeah.
You go out to dinner on Friday night,
Totally.
you're not getting that back.
Totally. Not at all.
Right? And this was more than dinner on Friday night, right? This
Yep.
was part of me taking a shot.
Yep.
I bought this business. This was my time to see if I could make myself and my family rise to a new level, make that dream of having community impact actually real. And for a fraction of what I've paid in college tuition, how could I say no to that? So yes, it was a struggle getting there.
Yeah.
But now, I'm not anywhere close to being through the lessons inside of the movement. At first I had this mindset that I just got to do them all, do them all, do them all. And then I realized, no, this is something that you just need to take time. You listen to one, see if that one works for you, and then spend some time with you or with that lesson. So I realize this is going to be an ongoing process. This is just going to be a place where I am for a while until I'm really, really settled in with some of the pieces that actually do work for me.
Yes, beautiful. I love that intention with it. Because that's how I created it, right? It's like and that's why we do the monthly topics, because I want you guys to be able to test out different things, dive a little bit deeper, see what works for you, see what lands for you, and just have those micro shifts along the way make all the difference, right? It's not something that you have to go in and consume every bit and get all of it at once, right? That's why we have access for it over a period of time, is because it's something that's meant to just kind of be in the background for you consistently. And what I'm hearing, just to kind of reinforce this, because I think it's huge, 2 micro shifts that created massive results for you. Number 1, deciding to let go of the story that money is always going out. That's a story for a lot of people, and it can feel so true, because as humans, money is always going out. Like, I could tell the same story but it feels terrible.
Right.
And oftentimes it's like, yeah, and there's money coming in too. But when we focus on what's going out, we get into scarcity. So being willing to let go of that story and stop telling that sounds like it made such a difference. And then stepping into that belief and this thought that I can create money and looking for where that's true, even if it's not to the level you want, it's everything. So those are massive. So I'm curious, when you came in, was it in January that you came in?
I think so. It might have
Okay,
been
so yeah, it's been
December.
December or January. So it's been
Yeah,
just 6 months, not
yeah,
even maybe, right? That's
yes.
amazing. So where was your business then and where is it 6 months later?
So in terms of actual dollars and cents, I finished 2023 somewhere in the $150,000 neighborhood
Okay.
as top line revenue. Thus far this year, between what I've booked and what I've earned, I'm right around 300,000.
Yeah.
So literally that number has doubled.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that, this is, you'll love this. The hard part about that is being inside of a franchise, they have this very systematic way of building a business and,
Yeah.
spreadsheets and
Right.
numbers and how many thises and that's do you need to get to your end result. And when they saw my business starting to take off, they would say, well, what's changed?
Yeah.
And they want this big, oh, I did this marketing thing,
Yep.
or I tried this new place, or, and all I can tell them is my mind.
Yeah.
And they're boggled by that. No. That's, you're not being serious. What really changed?
Yeah.
My mind.
Right.
It is the only thing. I'm not conducting business any differently. My sales technique is the same.
Yeah.
And it's inside of the franchise model. That
Yep.
is absolutely the same. My marketing methods, in fact, I've actually scaled down some of my marketing methods because they just weren't working. And I stood up and said, I have this belief that I don't need to spend money there,
Yeah.
and I'll still be okay. And that's absolutely been the truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are some of the practices you say in terms of your mind that have worked for you? Or what would you say if you were to define kind of what your manifestation process has been? What would you say that is for you? What works for you?
So really, the thought that I can create money
Mhm.
has been so powerful. I can
Yeah.
create money. Um, and the thought that I'm not desperate.
Yeah.
I'm not desperate. I'm working now from a place of confidence, not desperation. So if things go wrong, when things start to fall apart, when I think, oh, I just have to cry right now,
Yeah.
I will take a minute to remind myself, we're not desperate.
Yeah.
A, we have everything that we need for today. And B, your business is making money. There's no desperation here. As actual manifestation goes,
Yeah.
I'm very visual.
Yeah.
I like graphics. In the January challenge, I think it was January, there was find the statements and find the visuals that you would call forward.
Yeah.
And I put together both. And I just really found that if I could see it, if I could take a minute and close my eyes and actually look at it
Yeah.
inside of my mind, then I could make that truly, truly happen.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, that's happened just in a lot of ways. In my investment account, I've been envisioning my statement just incrementally growing, and
Yeah.
it has been. So that's just been super fun to watch. I was desperate, not desperate, wrong word. Just so excited about winning a remarkable in
Yes.
the
Oh,
last webinar. That was just, I was just like, you know
totally
what?
manifested that.
I just want this prize so badly that I did. I went onto the like the Best Buy website and I took a screenshot and then I stuck my name on it.
I
And
remember
every
that.
morning when I made a cup of coffee, I was like, "Yep, I'm winning that this time."
I love it. Okay, so just to give you all context, we do prices. So inside of the movement, we have the 21-day reboot. And then I do, of course, y'all know if you've been around for a minute, I do fun challenges and things. with the community. And I love giving away prizes. And sometimes the grand prize is a remarkable, which is a digital notebook. It's really cool. And so I totally remember this Monica last challenge. You yeah, you had won it, which it was just we do a prize draw. You won it and you showed a picture like, hey, I had created this visual and put my name on it. I totally manifested that. That is so awesome.
Yeah, yeah. The first thing that I ever actually manifested, and I did put this in the group from that first webinar that I was on, was a huge project. Um, and it was at the time the biggest project that I had ever landed. It was a $50,000 deal.
Yep.
And I had just finished being part of whatever that particular webinar. It was in November because it happened Thanksgiving week. And if I hadn't watched that webinar, I'm going to say I probably would have just said, nope, sorry, not for me. But there was so much talk about, what's possible. They called me on a Monday and asked me to come and estimate the site. And they wanted the estimate back on the following Monday, which usually not a big deal. But they also told me that it couldn't be on paper. They weren't accepting faxes. Oh no, it had to be on paper. They weren't accepting faxes or emails.
Yeah.
And the site was an hour and a half from my home. So actually putting it in the mail and trusting that it would be there by the following Monday was an impossibility. And of course, they were closed Thursday and Friday because it was Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
So literally, I had a very short period of time to turn this around. When I showed up at the site, I was the only woman. There must have been 30 men walking the site. So it was very intimidating. I was the last one to leave because I was still so new. I mean, I've only owned the business a short period of time, at that point, maybe 6 months. So it was just a real leap of belief that I just kept thinking, that's my job, that's my job, that's my job. And half-heartedly believing that it was my job, but still telling myself that it was my job. But if I hadn't heard the idea that, just tell yourself, even if you don't quite believe it, just hang on to it. It's entirely possible that given the turnaround time, the distance, the sheer intimidation of being the only woman on site, I might very well have just said, oh my gosh, this is nope, not this time. But I hung on to it. And that was really, I think, what just sort of started pushing me in the right direction. There's something actually to this. I need to figure out what it is.
That's amazing. And I love that you mentioned that you weren't in 100% full belief. It's like, yeah, your brain was probably questioning. There's probably a part of you in doubt or, yeah, right. But that you were like, no, but it's mine. I'm going to believe that anyways. I'm going to convince my brain, even though it has objections. And I think that's so powerful because you don't have to be in 100% belief. And I love that that opened that possibility for you. That is amazing. Amazing. Oh my gosh.
Totally credited to the movement. It took me a long time to even consider asking a question when I was listening to the calls because other people were asking things that I wanted to know. And I would think, oh gosh, this is so normal. I feel that way. And oh, other people feel this way. I'm not some weird anomaly that's having doubts or that's wondering, when or why or whatever it is, this scarcity thing that continually happens.
Totally.
Just that so much of it was normalized.
Yeah.
And there was a resource to just go and listen to. Oh yeah, I totally do that. Oh, and the beauty of it is that it's all very simple. Like when I listen to the lessons in the movement, not that the inner work is easy. I mean, sometimes it is, and sometimes it's really hard, and it takes a while to get there. But none of the principles are hard. They're all very simple. Work with the thought. It was the first thing I remember hearing you say, just work with the thought. You don't have to believe it, just work with it. And they're just all so simple. There's no run around the house 5 times and jump up and down and meet 17 people and go to a whole lot of networking events. There's no rule. Figure out what works for you. And that just makes it, even in the doubt, I can still come back to, wait, we already decided I can create money. We already know I can do that. Let's just get back to basics.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. So I am curious now that you're 6 months in, you've had this incredible growth in your business where you said you've doubled what you did last year already in 6 months, right?
Yes.
I mean, what I'm curious about, a lot of people think, oh, once I start making that money, the scarcity is going to go away. Have you found that to be true? Have you found that it's just bliss? Tell me what
No,
it's like
I wish that
making
I
money.
did. I wish that you had the solution to that. I would totally pay more thousands and more thousands.
Right? I'm
Uh,
still trying to figure it out, Monica.
oh, well, I'll write a check. I'll get a loan. No, as a matter of fact, last week I realized that my scarcity mindset right now in my business is about how do I grow it. And I have been so afraid of losing what's in my bank account, the money that I've earned, that
Right.
I've been holding it very tightly.
Okay.
Just holding on to it and worrying about, is it going to be enough? Will I have what I need? How will I keep my business going? And I decided just to loosen my grip. I've put together some marketing plans, and I've purchased some promotional materials, and I've just decided to take a chance on some new marketing thoughts, and not worry about spending the money. And trusting that if I really just believe in my business and what it's doing, that my business will send that money back to me. It will just come back. So,
Yes.
yeah.
The work continues, right? Even as you're growing, because there's layers of it, right? And then it's like, that's why I like having, a program that you can keep coming back to because it does the money work. It does, especially whenever you've created something you haven't probably created before for many people. It's like there's another layer after you get it. Then it's around having it and feeling comfortable having it. But I don't know if you have this experience, but for me, once I start understanding scarcity and start understanding my brain and that this is what it does, this is a human brain, it's like, oh yeah, you just learn to work through it faster, right? Or with more ease and more compassion for your mind. That's been my experience. But yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So
it definitely has been it's been eye-opening. Sometimes it takes me a minute to recognize
yeah,
that this is my scarcity brain at
yeah,
work.
yeah,
And I often wonder, why? Why don't I just see that and move forward? But it's a learning curve. So it's been a
totally.
lesson in giving myself some grace,
Yeah.
and certainly time to move beyond the old identities. I've uncovered so many of them,
Wow.
and they're all still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But like I said, the beauty of that is within the movement is recognizing it's not just me.
Yeah.
We've all had some trauma, some events, something that somebody told us somewhere along the way that we believed that wasn't true. And having the opportunity to recognize them and move forward. It's exciting, but I don't know. I think maybe your inner work never really stops because you're always learning. You're always
Totally.
moving forward.
Yep. Always new desires, new evolutions, new things we want to step into. It's just, yeah, 100%. And that's what makes it so worth it and so fulfilling as we're going.
Yeah.
So, gosh, this is so good. Thank you so much, Monica. I want to ask you actually two last questions. One, I'm curious. I know you're coming to the retreat, right?
I am,
In
yes.
September. We're going to see
Yes.
each other in person in San Diego. I cannot wait. Do you have an intention for that? What's
You
the
know
next
what?
layer for you?
My intention actually is to get on the plane and come.
Yeah.
In the midst of being divorced, I don't really travel well by myself, so I have definite fear. This is a courageous action on a personal level. So yes, just getting on the plane
Yep.
and coming is
Yes.
my intention. But I know that I do have some money blocks, and I am looking forward to just sort of poking around and seeing what bubbles up that I can take into, the last part of the year and move beyond so that 2025 is even better.
I'm so excited. I have an idea. You could create an ideal scene or a living vision around your experience traveling there and manifest that you get there with grace and ease. And, you know, like we can manifest anything. And like you said, you're visual. So maybe put a picture of yourself there just so that you can manifest that it's the best traveling experience you've ever had. Right.
That's a
And I
great
know like
idea.
I've had other clients, same thing where it's like, it's scary to get, you know, to fly across the country. And I have some who are flying across the world for it. So yeah, we'll manifest a easeful travel experience. And
I
actually my
love
husband used manifestation to get over his fear of flying
Oh,
amazingly. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
And so anything's possible, as we know. But my
Yes.
last question for you, I could talk to you all day, but I'm curious what advice you would have for someone who is where you were 15 months ago. You had gone through a challenging divorce. You were, you know, had the money before, but you realized, oh, I need to create money on my own now, right? And you realize that, but I'm sure there were fears there. Like, what advice would you have for a woman who is in that place where they feel like they don't have a lot of options, or they feel like they need to make money, but they're not exactly sure how? Any advice you would give?
So yes, two pieces. Number one, you always have options.
Yeah.
You might not like your choices,
Yeah.
but you always do have options. So change your story.
Yeah.
You know, what option would you like?
Yeah.
And maybe pursue that.
Mm.
The other piece of advice is something that I heard a really, really long time ago, and I've just lived by it. If you're unhappy with something about your life, make a change.
Yeah.
Yes, it's scary. The good news is, if you don't like the change, you can just go back to what you were doing before and try something different. The better news is you're doing something different, so it's likely to get better. You're just likely to see something in a different light. So don't be afraid to take a chance, whatever that chance is. If it's
Yeah.
joining a group like this, if it's just deciding you want a different job, living in a different place,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you feel like will work for you, don't be afraid to take that step forward and make the change.
Love it. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Monica. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and just sharing all of you. It's so beautiful. It's been amazing to witness. And now it's so fun to actually hear the behind the scenes of this story. So I really, really appreciate you. And I know this is going to be an inspiration to many women.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.